Many people have noticed the very severe weather that have been coming out of Texas lately. And, they're not alone. We're going to be getting slammed here in the Northeast over the coming months. And what I mean is, they're saying the hurricanes are going to be more intensified, but I'll go into that a little later. But I want you to listen to this NPR audio. Like many southern states, Texas has been ravaged by extreme weather in the last couple of years. From tornadoes to tens of thousands of acres burned in wildfires, local media there has called it once in a lifetime weather. Environmental journalist Amal Ahmed joins us now from Dallas to tell us why this is happening. Welcome. Thanks so much for having me. So, first of all, tell us what we're actually seeing in terms of weather in Texas. Yeah, so this past spring has been full of tornadoes and wildfires. There were a couple of tornadoes that hit recently in central Texas, and then the end of March also. The March and April has been very hot and dry, so we've seen record wildfires this season, mostly in West Texas and the Panhandle. And so, how is that different from in the past? Tornadoes, you think of that as a much later in spring kind of thing. So it's certainly earlier in the season. And I believe with the wildfires, at least the drought conditions are almost as bad as the drought of record in 2011, which was the last time that we saw probably as intense of a wildfire season. I would think that climate change is a factor in this. Can you talk about what is causing this change? Yeah, I think with wildfires, that's a lot easier to kind of track. Hot, dry conditions, that's definitely something that climate change is increasing, particularly pushing those temperatures and conditions into, earlier spring or late winter. Tornadoes are harder to sort of pin down to climate science. Scientists say it's because the records for tornadoes and how often they happen are pretty hard to prove, going back as long, and also the conditions being warmer air colliding with cooler air and the humidity and all of that, these things are becoming more common in earlier spring and late winter. So it sounds like the changes are happening. So it is having an impact. How is it affecting the people who are really most vulnerable to these types of changes? So I guess the idea, behind natural disasters that I've heard a lot from folks who study these is the idea that the events themselves are not disasters, right? So a wildfire in and of itself is not a disaster. A tornado in and of itself is not really a disaster. And it's kind of when we have any of these extreme weather events hit a city or collide with a town, destroying farmland, that is really kind of the natural disaster part. That is when you have people struggling to recover from that, rebuilding their homes, recovering all the losses financially, dealing with government agencies, right? Going through this kind of alphabet soup of programs and agencies and all of that. You've talked a lot about how energy efficiency could make a difference, or weatherization of houses, and how a lot of that is not happening in Texas or is not mandated to happen in Texas. How does that impact someone's home to not have it be weatherized to withstand maybe really hot weather or really cold weather? Yeah, we saw this certainly with Winter Storm Uri last year, right? Homes that are sort of built to older standards are not really going to keep a set temperature for a very long time. You're going to be pumping in more heating or cooling depending on the season to stay comfortable. So for low-income families or households, that means a much higher energy bill than you'd be paying, if you had upgraded windows, if your insulation was retrofitted and all of that, right? Or even if you had more efficient appliances. Housing, in a lot of senses, is just such an important tool in terms of climate resiliency and in disaster recovery as well. How can people prepare to survive this kind of weather? What can they do on their own? Have a go bag ready. If you're in an area where evacuations might be something that you're facing, right? Whether it's wildfires or a flood or something like that, with tornadoes, it's harder to predict. But supplies for a couple of days if the power goes out, important documents, licenses, IDs, things like food and water, flashlights, things like generators and whatnot. These are really great to have if you can afford it, right? In case the power goes out or something like that. That was environmental journalist Amal Ahmed. Thank you so much for speaking with us. Thank you for having me on. It seems like no matter where you live in America, there's some kind of disaster in your state. Well, Texas really have been going through it, but we're going to probably be going through it here, especially on the East Coast. The Atlantic Ocean is heating up every single year. It's getting hotter and hotter, which is fueling the hurricanes that come through. And they're already predicting a very intense hurricane season. Now, sometimes we may not always take a direct hit from the hurricane, we will get remnants of it. And I think sometimes when people hear remnants, they think, oh, you're just going to get the rain. And those remnants, you can get rain, wind, thunder, lightning, tornadoes, and flooding. It's not like just some rain. And I think sometimes, because I had a couple of cousins say that to me, oh, did y'all get that hurricane? And I was like, no, we just got remnants. Oh, you got a lot of rain. No, 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 no. Everything that you see in the hurricanes, a lot of times you see some of that in the remnants. Now, it may not be as intense as the actual hurricane, but it's still got some strength, even in the remnants. So, if it's going to be a more intense hurricane season, chances are we're going to be getting hit with all of that. And it's no joke what is turning out to be a very severe weather year. The weather is very severe now, and even the wildfires that you see are way more intensified than we've seen before. And not to mention, it's going to be really tough for the West. And they're also anticipating, like Washington State and Oregon, they will get hit with more triple digit weather this summer, just like they did the previous one. And it's very dry in the West. So it's like if any fire occurs, those trees and the brush and grassy areas will just go up like a matchstick. So that mega drought is unbelievable. I looked at some of the aerial shots. It is bad. It is really bad out west. It is no joke. But y'all, there's a drought in my state. It's not as bad as the west, but we still got one. And I really think that drought is going to spread more and more through the United States as, the years continue to roll by. But y'all, please tell me what you think. And if you live in Texas, please definitely comment on the weather conditions when you get hit with the storms and fires and everything. Love to hear your opinion. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.